We have been on such a roller coaster. All of the Angelinos, on Friday, 2 Fridays ago, we were top of the world. 220,000 people out in front of City Hall, all celebrating the Dodgers. It was wonderful to see the city come together like that. It was great. A couple of days later, I was in Boyle Heights unveiling the massive and beautiful mural of Fernando Valenzuela. And then, 72 hours later, that roller coaster went down. And I just have to say that the level of anxiety and concern that is happening in our city, and I know is happening all over the country with people being fearful, especially people who are immigrants to our country and to our city. And it is the time for us, though, when we go through these periods, and those of us that have been around for a while, like Mr. Mayor, it was an honor to get an award after you, named after you, that's sitting prominently in my office, even with your picture on it. But, you know, we've been through these times before, and when you go through these times, that's when you have to have the most unity possible. You have to stick together. You have to say that this is, first of all, a country of immigrants. And one thing that is so nice to be home from Congress, I gotta tell you, is that immigration is not a controversial issue in this city. We understand who we are and what we are. And I just have to tell you that it doesn't matter what the policies are. When the words are said in the way that they're said, the fear and the anxiety and the terror that it creates begins immediately. It's not about passing a bill. And that's where we are in our country right now. That's where we are in our city, which is why next week you will see, working along with our city attorney, Heidi Feldstein Soto. I called her last week. We are working together and got the sanctuary cities ordinance that will be voted on in City Council next week. We know how to stick together because that is our roots. And stick together we shall. We won't let the things happen that have been of threat. It is wonderful to be here with my sister Hilda Solis on the County Board of Supervisors. And although we didn't serve together in Congress, I did have the honor and opportunity to see you as Madam Secretary, Secretary of Labor, and then to now work with you lockstep on the Board of Supervisors as we address another problem that brings us together, which is homelessness. And we know that the unhoused people on the street, 74% are Latino and African American. So we always have to look for those concrete opportunities to work together to deliver change. And Maria Salinas, your leadership of the chamber is unprecedented, and it has been wonderful to work with you and the business community. As you sit next to my mentor, former mayor, who makes sure I stay on the straight and narrow. Well, let me just say, Mickey, thank you so much for the honor of introducing Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. That video was a beautiful video to the work that you've done, but I will say there was nothing on that video that surprised me. I knew, even though I was mad at you when you left Congress, I knew that you would go to New Mexico and lead the way you did. A few of the formalities of her history, of her bio: the 32nd governor of the state of New Mexico and the first Democratic Latina to be elected governor in U.S. history. As governor, she has implemented a series of evidence-based policies aimed at transforming New Mexico's public education system, expanding the state's economy to include more high-quality employment opportunities, and all of the accomplishment that we saw on the video. Michelle was elected to the House in 2013, and as a member of Congress, she worked aggressively to support local tribes, equal pay for women, public schools, public lands, and veterans health care. In 2016, she became the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. She became a vocal national leader in the battle against terrible anti-immigrant policies during the first 2 years of Trump's term. I will tell you that I said a second ago that I was mad at her. I was mad at her because she was such a great friend. And one thing about being in Congress, you really kind of all live together because everybody's from out of town. And you live and you work there, and over the years, you become lifelong friends. And so a lot of us were upset because Michelle was such a bright light in Congress. Anybody that knows her, and I know her high school friend is here, and I asked her, I said, was she like that in high school? Because Michelle is always making you laugh, always cracking a joke. And you know what? In tough times, you need that. And we went through tough times, whether we were doing votes at midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning, and she was there cracking everybody up. And everybody turned around and say, Michelle, come on, it's midnight. We don't need that. But the spirit and the joy in which you go about life and you go about work and you transmit that to anybody and everybody that is around you, I know is a key to your success. So I was very excited when you ran for re-election, and of course were elected. Who would dare run against a record like that? That everyone, we were all so proud, though, to see one of our sisters leave Congress and move to become the governor. So will you join me in welcoming my friend, the governor of the state of New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham.
Wow. Well, that was very nice. What the mayor didn't tell you is during the video, I said, oh, why am I always yelling? She said, because nobody can see you. That's why I have to be on a giant standing box, Madam Mayor. The other story that she didn't tell you is I have a little tiny, really, it's minuscule, teeny-weeny character flaw in which I insert myself in everyone's business and work, whether I have any expertise in that or not. And when you're one of 435 members in Congress, you know, and you sort of go through those incremental stages, I realized as an older person in Congress, I would be dead before I ever got to do anything for my constituents. So I kept inserting myself, and that can be uncomfortable. And Congresswoman Bass was in charge of a group that was rewriting all of the policies in the House for the Democratic caucus because there was some natural tension between new members like me, who wanted to be doing everything all at once, and members who had experience, expertise, and seniority, who were also not leaving anytime soon. It's a really tough job. And so Congresswoman Bass, now Mayor Bass, was leading that, and I was in Leader Pelosi's doghouse. It's a very tiny little doghouse. There's only a one-way door. Once you're in, you cannot really get out. You kind of have to back out. You should also know I deserved it. And so I get appointed to basically be Congresswoman Karen Bass' assistant on this committee, and I don't want to be on the committee, and I don't want to be her assistant. And in the very first meeting, she says out loud to everyone, "What in God's name did you do?" Because your whole job is to just bring people refreshments at all of the meetings. I tell that story because it is how relationships start. It's by having a moment where everyone recognizes that it's hard and that you're going to have to learn the ropes, and to do that effectively, Tell people who you are. Tell them why you're motivated or not. And find the things that connect you, not the things that divide you, but the things that connect you. And so I want to do maybe 3 things in highlighting that story. 1, it feels very easy, and it's a strategy, frankly, the people in this room know better than anybody else, which is it's easy to divide people. We're all struggling, we're all fighting, we're all working to make a difference. You don't do these jobs unless that's in your DNA. And it is very easy to refocus our energies because it's an uphill climb with a backpack and a boulder, and it's raining, and there's a mudslide, and there are fires, and someone's throwing daggers at you. It's hard. And so you feel like, certainly I do, that if you don't just focus on that moment, you can't get through it, and it doesn't allow for you to build relationships and support systems so that we're doing it together. And when it gets really hard, as the mayor described, it gets even easier to be divided, to focus on the thing that you can do, but not to bother with the things that you can't. So that's number 2. We have to be united. You heard the mayor say that. You heard our leader, Mickey Ibarra, say that. Being united is the best strategy for complete and total success. It's infectious. People want to be part of a unified effort at making things better and about moving forward, 1,000%. So what we do today and tomorrow and every day is we stay united no matter our differences on a particular issue. And last, and I know this happens to you, and I'm going to thank the folks who are recognizing me today, I promise. How many of you raise your hands in a meeting or a promotion or a recognition or your participation in a recognition or an interview? They ask you, who motivated you? Where did your strength come from? And in all earnesty, I could never figure that out. Because I grew up in a house that didn't feel like it was like everybody else's house. And actually, I told the story last night to many of the board members. I worked for 3 different governors. I got appointed as the youngest cabinet secretary, I think then, and my chief of staff is here, Danny, so I don't know if that's still true. But I was the youngest cabinet member, and I was running aging. So that went over like a lead balloon for then Governor Bruce King. So you hired a teenager with 0 life experience to come in here and figure out services for older people. I thought that was a great idea. How hard can that be? Well, it's hard. And he spent the first 2 years trying to fire me because, frankly, I was terrible at that job. And I got asked this question all the time. And then I figured it out. And figuring it out was respect, dignity, and understanding that we all come from a very unique set of circumstances, even if there are similarities. All of us. And the second I recognize that for every older person in New Mexico, we're in. We're family. We're thick. We're tight. So when a new governor got there, that wasn't expected, because the governor I was working for was expected to have a second term, a Republican governor that you might all remember named Gary Johnson, who ran for president. And it was the end of the world. I'm looking right at my very good friend and colleague and one of my mentors, Mayor Marty Chavez, who I think had a lot to do with this award and certainly our successes in the state. He's never stopped working. He will always be the mayor and recognized as one of New Mexico's finest leaders in the state and around the country. My good friend, Marty Chavez. But it was sort of the end of this sort of democratic legacy and energy in a state that's a minority majority state and very democratic. And this cannot happen. How can this happen? Got a businessman that nobody knows that is now elected as governor. And of course, what happens when you get elected? All the people in government leave. And I was asked to leave, as you should. And seniors marched on the Capitol. Thousands of them. They also broke the phone lines, which was my favorite. And so I got called, all right, I get called by the governor's chief of staff. So Dan, don't do this, it's a terrible idea. And they tell me to call them off. Call off those seniors. And I said, oh, sure. Do like a bat signal that tells everyone, if you're retired, it's got the last 4 digits of your social security number, get the hell out of there. And I said, I don't tell them what to do. This is your mistake, and this is why they're mad. You didn't ask them what they want, and you didn't ask them what they are hoping you will do in this administration. So they're there without an invitation to let you know how they feel. Now, the downside of that story is be careful, because you could get reappointed to that very same job, which is exactly what happened. And so I stayed for another 8 years, and then I thought I was finally going to get to go. And Bill Richardson actually fired me again. Marty, I think you might have been around for that. I hope you didn't help him do that. Maybe it was Luke Otero, but a bunch of these guys who are now here, I'm sure, told him, you got to get rid of her. She's a mess. True. And he did. And then the same situation occurred. And this time legislators, bipartisan, said, we have a relationship. This relationship matters. We want people that we have a relationship with so that we can agree to disagree on some issues, but agree to fight and work together for others. So I stayed. And the only way not to be an appointee for a really bossy, difficult personality like a governor was to run for office. And so that's what I did in 2007. And you learn more from losing an election than I think you do from winning it. And so what does that have to do with today? In those journeys and in those appointments and in those relationships and in recognizing who I am and where I come from, I have to describe it to these new consultants in my congressional race. And they write me an ad. And in this ad, I need to tell the story of being poor and disenfranchised. I have to lean into the fact that I'm a woman, pobrecita. I'm older, double pobrecita, vieja. And talk about how hard my upbringing was. In a family of Hispanics, in a state that you heard has long-standing, hundreds of years of generational poverty and distress. And I look at this consultant and say, you're fired because you don't know anything about me. And that's not my story. My story is completely and uniquely my own, and that's not what it is. So here it is. I'm the oldest of 3. The territorial governors of New Mexico are my direct relatives. I'm a descendant. My great-grandfather was the largest sheep rancher in the West and in the state, in the northern Union County. He had 5 sons. All 5 sons were educated in Ivy League colleges in the United States. And all of them were wealthy gentlemen as a result, and they didn't understand ranching, so the ranch went away and they all had to go to work. My father also, medical degree, dentist, graduate degree, met my mother while he was serving his country in Germany, brought a woman from Brazil, Indiana, with the last name Jackson, who didn't know that Catholics are a major religious group in the United States, in spite of having a Catholic president that was very popular. And she has no idea. She takes a little tiny train to a little tiny place in New Mexico called Lamy and gets off and sees high desert, no people. Antonio, more cows. There are. Antonio didn't know what a cow was. They were those big, 4-legged, furry, you ate a chicken, but you definitely had a cow last night, I saw it. So This is a culture shock. So I have what we like to refer to in Santa Fe then, an integrated family with probably the first woman in the city of Santa Fe to try to take on the Catholic Church and flat out refuse to wear a mantilla. Not going to happen. That went over like a lead balloon in the 60s, let me assure you. Different. I had my own room. I had a house with a pool. Are there any houses right now in Santa Fe with a pool? I don't think so. I went to a private high school, and it was always clear that my path would go to college and a graduate degree, not the stories from people that we talk about in generalizations who are Hispanic or immigrants. And we say 12 generations, it's more like 16. Right? It's the 1500s. So it's a different story, but it's a powerful story. And at first, I was feeling a little entitled. I had a different story. I wanted for nothing. It was easy and fun and happy and funny, and my dad was beloved. And then you have a realization the first time you have a really hard problem to solve. A woman who calls you in tears, who's going to lose her house, who has a son who's been in trouble, who has a girlfriend that figured out how to hack all of your accounts and took all your Social Security, who leveraged your house in a mortgage and you're going to lose it, who doesn't know how to navigate or figure out how she's going to live, who's also 87, who finds herself going to court because her son and this woman are going to try to get a guardianship and put her into a nursing home against her will. And I realize the law is actually against us in 1987. But you know what that did to me? That really pissed me off. All right? And I realized, why am I so angry about this injustice? I will tell you why. My father, when he returned home from serving his country and set up his dental practice, realized what so many healthcare professionals still realize. There are too many people who don't have access and can't pay for any services everywhere, even today with the Affordable Care Act. And now dental services are barely covered anywhere by anyone. My dad built a dental office in our garage. I thought everyone had that in their garage. And, I mean, we always had our cars outside. It's because you have a dental chair in the garage. We had patients coming in and out of the house 24/7 for most of my life because it was the only place they could go to get dental services. And he did that for free for whole families. We ended up with cats and chickens and goats and elk meat and deer meat and all kinds of stuff that my mother had no idea how to cook because my dad was just trading. He created dignity for the people that he served. And when I was campaigning all over the state, I met more people who said, I never got sick. Our whole family got dental care. We would take a 3-hour trip because your dad would provide free care. He also was the dentist for the Carmelite nuns who take a vow of silence unless it's health care. And I can remember my dad pacing the house, just really not wanting to go to the office the next day because they were all going to talk for hours, and he was going to drive him insane. I still get notes from all those mother superiors. We lose one, a new one, and they all write me every year to tell me what a difference my father made for them. When my father died, he owed a sizable sum of money to a dental lab, and my dad died destitute. And I had no idea. And as a lawyer, I'm navigating that estate. I didn't understand. It's because my father paid for every lab bill, every bridge, every pair of dentures, every implant, everything, every cap for every New Mexican. And even when he couldn't work, he paid that bill every single month because he felt he had an obligation to lift everybody else up. And while this was happening in my perfect childhood, where I was a bit entitled, my mother, who is now navigating my sister, who has a malignant brain tumor at 2, with no healthcare services in a rural state, they have to fly all around the world. It was an anomaly that she lived every day. Some doctor would tell her she will die. It's a month. It's a day, it's a week for my sister's whole life. She died when she was 21 from those brain tumors. And my mom fought like mothers do for their children. And she marched in the halls of Congress with a high school education and nothing else to arm her except the love of her family and her children, and the notion that there were too many mothers and fathers in this situation. And my parents privately paid for hair care while I went to a private school, swam in a pool, did whatever I wanted to do, went to college on a family scholarship and free ride, and went to law school in the same way. I don't know how they did it. They made it so easy when it wasn't. And I realized, and now I'm going to end. That experience empowers me to connect all of the dots and to recognize that our own hardships and challenges are in fact our own. And in fact, when I lost then, I have a new love of my life. You saw him in that hideous giant truck. He used to be a Republican. Dear God. Made it clear he would never vote for someone like me. And then God punishes you because now we're married. I don't know who's more punished, me or him. I think it's even. It's even. My gun-toting, ranching, knows all about cows, Antonio. I'm going to have him call you. Second love, but I lost my husband after 27 years. He went out for a run, and he just didn't come home. I lost the business he created. I've lost half my income, and now I'm that angry older person trying to figure out how I'm going to navigate my life without enough money to do it. They make you who you are, and now I promise I'm concluding. Why is any of that valid about how you're driven and what it is that makes you do what you do? Back to where I started. These relationships that you all have forged matter. My relationship with Marty Chavez, where we've been competitors and foes and on the opposite end of a number of issues. My relationship and respect for Mayor Chavez matters. And it makes a difference in the things that I can do. My high school best friend, who I took advantage of because she was really nice and she knew what being Catholic was, and had a car. As a sophomore in high school, how do you have a car? She's driving around. Nobody else even had a license. So I don't know. You cheated. You got a license when nobody could get a license. I don't understand that. But I was all about it. I was going to get a free ride every day until I was a senior in high school, and that's exactly what happened. We have stuck to each other, by each other, and she's my official date at this event, taking 2 days off to make sure that I never forget that the people who care about you aren't just the people that you're related to by blood. It's the people that you build a neighborhood and a community and a state with. And she has never stopped supporting me, no matter where I go or what I do, and right back at you, sister. And the stuff that I've done to Anna is just terrible. And then lastly, Mickey. It means a ton to everyone here that you recognize jobs well done, challenges people face, that you give us an opportunity to get to know each other better and to recommit, and that you get to highlight that while now you know my entire nutty personal story, that there are things in New Mexico, like around the country and right here in LA. I spent this morning looking at some of the projects for folks who are unhoused and working with somebody I respect to help me get it right in New Mexico. New Mexico has a multitude of significant challenges that we are still facing. But I will tell you, in just a few short years, because COVID was, I was going to use a really terrible word, and I can see Dan, don't do it, resist. All right, I'm going to resist, but only this once. We are now the only place in America with a constitutional right and a cradle to career. And when I mean a full on-board educational home support, home visiting, free childcare, free pre-K, where we're doing new brain architecture for our little ones. Are you ready? So that they won't need, even with a diagnosis of autism, many, if not most of them, will never need special education in the state of New Mexico ever again. A moonshot in K through 12, extended learning, a literacy institute where the numbers are rising. We were 50th, we're coming right up. That's still a challenge, but you watch our literacy and you watch our STEM educational scores, and then free college, 2-year, 4-year, part-time, full-time, not just community college, anywhere, no wrong door, trades, apprenticeships, all of it, everywhere. We have the highest first-time enrollment, largely Hispanic women in the country. Highest overall college enrollment, only second to New Hampshire, and they barely by a smidge. We have one of the top economies, one of the top employment growth, top wage growth. We are leading the country. We're even beating the pants off California in renewable energy. I'm going to call Gavin and said I said that right out loud. 41% of what we produce and use is renewable in a state that we produce the second highest amount of oil and gas in the country. And as weird as that sounds, Chevron's right here, they'll tell you. It's the cleanest barrel of oil and the cleanest liter of gas anywhere on the globe, and we're doing that work together, and we're not using fresh water. I don't know where Chevron is. I just pointed to that table. All right? We're getting it done. We're making a difference. We're all on the same team. We're moving New Mexico forward. More health care, more everything. Showing that we didn't double the population. We just have 2 million people. Hispanic families, not just Hispanic families, with people, I'm related to the first million. All of us. I can't do that 23andMe because I'm going to find out that we're too closely related, and it's just information I don't need at this point in my career. So Brian Colon, we're probably related, just get over it. If we can do it with billions, tens of billions, altogether all of our funds are over $80 billion in an economy that's growing faster than double the national average in every single sector that we are engaged in. Means that if we can do it as one of the poorest states in the nation, there isn't a story or a family or a group or a leader who can't achieve their own dreams and visions in that same way in America. I'm very proud. Thank you, Brian. I'm very proud to be here today. I'm lucky to be here today. And I know that we're going to stay united. We're going to stand tall. I'm the shortest governor in the country. I was the shortest damn member of Congress. I was the shortest Bernalillo County Commissioner. I was the shortest. I'm always the shortest. I'm 4'9". I know that was a burning question. How short is she? I'm the cutest. I'm going to go with that. That is a lot better than the stuff people usually say about me. If we stay focused and we stay united, they cannot hurt us. They can delay us. They can frustrate us. They can make us a little angry, like my 87-year-old client. They can exasperate us. They can embarrass us. But they cannot shake us from our foundations of who we are and what we believe in and what we know we can achieve when we do it together. So I'm committed to doing this work, Mickey, with everyone here all across the country. Let's do it together. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
On behalf of the Latino Leaders Network, Governor, it is my pleasure to present the Eagle Leadership Award for your outstanding contribution to our community, to the state of New Mexico, and our country. Thank you.